come to order. Now I know why you don't sit together. Now I know why you don't sit together.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see back there.
He's just taking his time. Jim Ward, he's just taking his time. I've been the gavel. He's just taking his time.
I cannot see it all well. I just hardly get it up here, so I said up
Sounds
here.
like a good excuse. We know the real reason. I gotta start myself. So
I have
gotta
macular
stop these
degeneration, folks, so it really is reason.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's try it one more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Lower energy levels. Everybody notice it's like fall outside?
Yeah.
My name is Bill Herrick, and welcome to meeting number 242 of TMG, the MAC group. 25 years. We're starting our 25th year as a user group today. So September 1990 was the very first meeting.
Excuse me, I don't know if we can go further on. We're running short of dues.
Oh, you mean I'm not up to date? Oh. Now, I have a family membership, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well then that would be $40.
That's it.
I need a receipt.
I will get it. That sounds different, doesn't it?
It does sound different.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, that little skit we just worked out there, but that's one of the basic principles of this organization. We're all equals here. If the president and co-founder hasn't got his dues up to date, you know, I got to pay my dues. Okay, so with that said, 25 years of helping friends. So I'm using this as just sort of a better way to keep myself organized up. Okay, now we have visitors here and we have some new members here. So this is sort of the basic agenda that we always follow. So we start out with the welcome. That's where I have new members and visitors stand up and introduce themselves. So let's do that first. We've got David Jones. Where's David Jones? Okay, David. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Pensacola. I was a member of the PIMA, Pensacola Mac Users Group, and I probably joined you guys. I need a lot of help in certain areas.
Okay. Do you have a Mac?
When you have an outhouse.
Or a
iMac.
device?
I got an iMac and the first edition iPad.
Okay. And what do you use them for?
Fun.
Is there stuff you don't know how to do,
Email.
but you want to learn how to do?
I pretty well know how to operate it. Every now and then I get stumped.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Okay, is there stuff you know you should be able to do with your computer equipment, but you don't quite know how to do it?
Right, but that only happens when I get stumped. I don't get stumped too often.
Okay, okay. I think you came to the right place. So, at the break, people will come up and say hi to you. If they try to borrow money, just no. And then we also have some new members today. Oh, David, one other thing. Where'd you hear about us?
Where did I hear about it?
Yeah.
Well, I sort of Googled you guys and asked the guys back in Pensacola if they knew,
Okay.
you know, your group. And that was about 3 years ago.
Okay. Okay. You know, when the time is right, you do it. And when it's not, you don't.
Sounds like my wife.
We also have some new members, and I think they're also first-time visitors, and that's Larry and Judy Hubner. The upstanding.
Here.
So, I've been told that you're friends or neighbors of some grass. And that you just got apples for the first time?
No, our first computer was a Mac IIB.
Okay.
Then we went to an LC, then we went to a
Okay.
Macintosh, and then were both teachers, and they were using PCs at that
Yeah.
time, so then we went to PCs.
Yeah, okay,
But our son gave us an iPad for Christmas, and
okay.
That started.
so that started it all, so
Plus
we
the
now have an
neighbors.
iPhone and a MacBook Pro.
Okay.
So you backslid and got saved again.
Yes. That's exactly it.
Again, I think you came to the right place. Thank you. Okay. So that was the welcome. Okay, we also call it the embarrassment. Oh, again, if somebody comes up to break, tries to borrow money, just know. Okay. The next one, this is something new. I've been told that I'm not organized enough. So this is sort of what we got sort of drafted out as what we're going to do this year. Anything with a question mark in front of it is not set in concrete at all. So today we'll be doing a mini presentation. Will be a demonstration of a program called GraphicConverter. Next month we're looking at iOS 8. I paid my dues. Oh, we have another guest.
Right here, you have Matt.
Okay. Please stand up and introduce yourself.
My name is Matthew Reiser, and I just bought an iMac
Okay.
and do a lot of video editing.
Cool. What do you do in your editing?
Lots of home movies, people bring their old VHS tapes, and I turn them into DVDs for them. I use Encore and Premiere.
Okay,
and
Premiere
Adobe
Pro or
Suite.
just Premiere?
The Master Suite is what I have.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
Okay, so no Red Horse, no Avid, you're not using any of the
no, I
old-
don't have Avid Studio,
Okay.
but I know what it is.
Okay, cool. Again, at the break, people come up, want to borrow money. No.
Or collect dues unless it's Tom.
All right, so we're at iOS 8. That's the operating system that's used on the mobile devices and the wearable devices. So that would be the iPhones, the iPods, the iPads, all that stuff. Apple Watch. And then the following month, November, Yosemite. That's the operating system for the full-blown computers, the MacBooks, the iMacs, the Mac Minis, all that. Then, tentatively, we've got some other things in here. A ViewScan demonstration. ViewScan is a wonderful program that lets you use old scanners on new equipment. So if you've ever had the experience where you've upgraded to Windows 7 and now your printer doesn't work, your scanner doesn't work, ViewScan can get your scanner to work again on Windows, Linux, or Macintosh. Even the really old stuff that uses Twain. And then a possible Parallels desktop for the Mac. A File Buddy is another possible. Sheep Shaver, Apple Watch, Internet of Things. We're sort of, moving stuff along. Just sort of throwing it out. I am always open to suggestions. If you can think of a program that you really love and you think other people need to know about it, let me know.
What is sheep shape?
Okay.
Curious.
I'm just going to refer to it as SS, because if I say sheep shaver too many times. That is a program that I put on my mother-in-law's Macintosh and my wife's Macintosh, because they have some games that run in Mac OS 8, not Mac OS X, but Mac OS 8 and 7 and 9 that they still want to play. If you install SS on a Mac, you've got what's called an emulator, and you can run Mac OS 7 and 8 and 9 software on a current Macintosh. Okay. It's not for the faint of heart. Yes, Elton?
Are you going to let us know which devices are eligible to receive iOS 8? So I know they don't go all the way back to the very first iPad or the very first
iPad 2 up, iOS 8 will run on.
iPad 2 up?
Right, so basically if it runs iOS 7, it'll run iOS 8.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. All right, so. Normally that's a help desk question, that's what I think. We're fluid here. So anyway, these are sort of the things that we have coming up. What I'm intending to do is keep this as part of the standard agenda for this year, and we'll just, update it each month and let you know what's going on. Okay, so with that said, let me go back to here. So the next item on the agenda would be, news. Okay, anybody have any items that they want to share with the other members? Mr. Georges, you want to tell them about a print publication that's no longer going to be in print?
You mean Macworld?
Yeah.
It's going to end in November.
Yeah.
Oh,
The print portion of it's they're not going to quit distributing it and quit printing it. They'll have an online version, I guess. Now, I've not received anything in the mail or email or anything from Macworld telling me this. Yeah.
My understanding from the email I had from Jason Snell, who was retiring from IDG, so it was his last day, but then he was tweeting stuff. They apparently laid off the entire staff except for 3 people that maintained their webpage, a manager, and 6 freelance writers. But everybody else, that was their paycheck, last paycheck, Friday. Or Thursday, I guess. Anyway, so no more Macworld in print. We'll see what happens in terms of it on the web. Any other buddy that have, yes, Sean?
Just 2 things. One, on the way here this morning, I drove by Mac Depot, and they are closed.
That's what I was going to mention, yeah.
Yes. Mac Depot closed, I want to say just before I went on vacation. My saga to the west and back and other stuff. And I have seen Angie and Greg since they've closed. And so that means that you have no other Apple authorized repair places in the valley except for the Apple store. Mactown has closed, Mac Depot has closed, and Blue Sky, which was a little hole-in-the-wall shop that did Mac stuff, mainly for corporate customers, has also closed. Now, I want to just let you know something. The Apple store, they don't come out to your house. Okay? So if you've got a problem with your Apple equipment, you have to take it to the Apple store. Okay? And Ray Ratchford in the front row, he had a problem with his iMac with the keyboard not working, and he took it out there 3 times?
I took it to them twice and couldn't duplicate the problem. And I take it home, plug it in, and the problem was still there.
Okay.
But they were very nice to me. I pulled up at the front door, no place to park. Someone rushed out, picked up my computer. It was a 24-inch iMac. And they were really accommodating, taking care of things for me.
So, class service, in other words, at the Apple store. But the problem that Ray had was environmental.
Well,
it was at his house.
Yeah. Before we go back home for the final version of this, I asked them, what do I owe you for all this? Because, they spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
If it's software, no charge.
Mm-hmm.
If it's hardware, there's a charge. So I got back home, and I happened to talk to a friend of mine that I think he knows a little bit about computers. He's standing in front of us. And he said, sometimes if you have a Bluetooth device that's running low on battery, that can cause flaky things to happen. What it was is my mouse would not accept a left click.
And your keyboard was doing it.
And the keyboard was acting up. So he said, once in a while that can happen. Okay, Bill, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Now let's see, what could be doing it? Everything's turned off. And with a little touchpad, it was off, no problem there. I got my Wacom tablet out, and it seemed to be off. Remember I used the word seem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little tiny button you plug into your USB port so it can talk to your computer. And I reached down and I pulled it out of the keyboard, and I saw my screen make a, and everything was fixed. So I really investigated close, and I think what had happened is the pad was on a shelf, and I think something was leaning on it, causing it to transmit problems.
So this was one particular instance. I want you to think not about the tree, but the forest. So sometimes the problem that you're experiencing has something to do with the environment that you're in. And if you take the device to the Apple store, you're taking the device out of that environment, which means it's going to work absolutely fine. So just so you know, you're not crazy. Okay? Sometimes it has to do with the environment.
Sometimes it's a man-machine interface problem too.
Yes, sometimes it is that module between the, yeah. Okay. One more. Yeah, go ahead.
iPhone story. Beginning of August, I was driving down First Street in downtown Dayton, and coming up to a stoplight, there was something laying right on the center line in the road. And as I stopped at the light, I looked in the side view mirror and I said, "That's a phone. That shouldn't be in the middle of the street." So I got out of the car, picked it up, and all the pieces that were on there, the case and everything, and put it down in the center console. And as we're driving home, I said, well, we're going to have to see if we can find out who the owner is and get this back to them. The phone had been run over, the screen was crazed, cracked, and as we're driving home, it starts lighting up. And my son was visiting. We got home, found out that Siri worked on it. I mean, this phone was smashed to pieces. Pushed the button and talked to Siri, phone home. And we tried all kinds of things like that, not successful. Later that evening at 11:30 at night, we had 2 police cars and the lady who owned the phone at our house. To pick up the phone. She thought somebody had stolen it.
Ah, okay.
And we said, here's your phone.
Yeah.
We're trying to find out who it belonged
Did
to.
you have to keep your hands in that position?
So my wife says I'm not allowed to pick up phones.
Or if you do, call the police.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay. Chuck.
Do you have to have an appointment at the Apple Store to bring your computer into the?
It's best.
Yes, and they're very accommodating. You call the main number wherever, and they can coordinate with any store. And in my case, they wanted to set my appointment for a day or two later, and I said, well, you know, I hate doing without my computer. And they said, well, how long would it take you to get to the store? And I said, about 15 minutes. And they had me in there in a half hour.
You can also, using a website, be able to schedule stuff.
You can go online, you can see all the available appointments they have at that moment.
I had heard that you had to do it online, so I didn't know.
You don't have to, but it's better, because that way it shows all the things available for your store.
Yeah. So those of us who have Apple equipment, this is going to be, a little bit of a mind change. You have to make an appointment. You can't just drive over to MacTown. You can't just drive over to Mac Depot. And they don't come out to your house. You're going to have to haul this stuff there. Okay. So just be aware of that. Because I had all these people, all these phone calls on my answering machine when I got back from the Dakotas going, did you know Mac Depot closed? Did you know MacTown closed? Apple doesn't come out. Can you come out? It's like, okay. Yes, Shauna.
There is another store that will do Apple service. It's DNA Computers, located right at Woodman and Dorothy,
Okay.
by the UDF in that plaza.
Are they Apple authorized?
They are Apple authorized. Their prices are reasonable, and they will do data backup and recovery that the Apple Store will not do.
Okay.
Where's that at? The name again is what?
DNA Computers.
Email me with their contact information, and we'll add it to what we send out to the members.
Dorothy and what?
DNA.
Dorothy Lane, Woodman.
Oh, close to where?
Yeah, by the
Magneto-
UDF, right?
Yeah,
So just
okay.
that.
Dinucleic acid DNA. Okay. All right. Other things. Okay. There was this small announcement by Apple the other day. So what they were announcing was that iOS 8 is going to be released next week. That's the operating system for your mobile devices. They also talked about how they were doing with moving Yosemite out. They announced this new thing called Apple Pay, which is where your mobile device will act like a credit card, right? And, you know, it's early days with this stuff. It's not rolled out yet, but we'll get you more information as we learn more about it. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what else. And then there were some iPhones that they released, the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. And I'm trying to think, help me out here, folks.
Watch.
Oh, and the watch, the Apple Watch. Now, just so you know, Apple Watch, they're showcasing it, but it hasn't gone into production yet, full-scale production. They're still doing their trial production. And the other thing is, they haven't released the pricing for all of it yet. And they're still working on the details of the operating system in that.
It's $349 on
That's just for the low-end model. They didn't say what the 24-karat gold was, and the one that's in the middle. Okay. So anyway, we'll be getting you more information about that stuff as they make it available. Yes, Phil?
Pluses and minuses of the iPhone 6.
Say it again.
Plus and minuses of the iPhone 6, you know.
I don't know yet. I'm not, this is going to sound strange, but I don't have a smartphone. I've never have had a smartphone. And so I rely on other people to tell me about the iPhone and, you know, what's good and what's bad. I do know this, they've already pre-sold more, you know, in their pre-sale than the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 4 combined when those were first released. So apparently there is a lot of demand for it. Yes?
Discuss the new capacity in hard drives.
Ooh, Bill Howe up here in the front just reminded me to also let you know that they've increased the amount of stuff you can put on an iPhone. And you can have up to 128 gigabytes of storage on your iPhone.
Wow, that's a lot of storage.
Also, something else that's sort of sad for me, they've discontinued the iPod Classic. That was the last of the iPods that had a hard drive in it, a electromechanical hard drive. And this morning, when I fired up my Mac Classic, my iPod Classic, it didn't come up. And my iPod Nano died this morning, and the iPod Touch my daughter's iPod Touch that she had given me also didn't come up. So I'm going like, okay.
Is the world trying to tell you something?
I don't know, but it was sort of like, oh, okay, I don't have time to deal with
They
this.
just
I
have
have
to
a
go to the
meeting I have
basement
to
with
go
all the
to.
other relatives.
Okay, so anyway, anything else in the way of news? Yes?
Yeah, iCloud storage space went up
Ah,
for the same amount of money.
Actually, lower price.
yeah, what they've done is they have increased the capacity, but they've lowered the price for what they charge for storage in the cloud from Apple. So that's what's iCloud. I have a feeling they're going to start renaming all of these iThings to be Apple Cloud, Apple TV, Apple Watch. You know, the iThing is sort of going away, I'm told. Yes, Ray? News item?
Yes. Does anybody in the room besides me use Gas Cubby to keep track of their expenses on their cars? Anybody raising their hand
No.
out there? Then I won't bother you with it.
Okay. Okay, yes, Bill?
Two things. iPhone 5 owners, Apple has a battery replacement program for a finite bunch of serial numbers. Between September 2012 and January 2013, it's a limited serial number range. If you just go to Apple's support and do iPhone 5 battery replacement, it'll take you to a page, you can submit your serial number, and it'll tell you whether or not it's eligible for it.
If there's a power button.
Yes, there is.
You know. With that, you need to back up your data. You have to turn off Find My iPhone, and then you go to erase your data and settings in their phone before they'll do that, because apparently for some reason, they wipe everything out.
Can you forward that to either me or the
Sure,
Mark so that
I
we
can
got
do
it
that.
for the meeting notes? Okay. Yes, Richard?
Any comments on the security breach, you know, that they had the
Which
stars had their naked photos taken, that implies to me that somebody went through a bunch of other people looking for that kind of stuff. but just generally, you know more about how this.
Not a whole lot of information coming out from Apple about it, except for the one statement by Tim Cook, which he's made on 5 different venues, which was the problem, the source. He had to be careful not to sort of diss the people, but apparently having your first name as your password is a bad thing. So it wasn't so much where somebody got into the back door of iCloud or whatever. It was a
They read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as their combination. And my luggage.
Charlie Rose has a 2-part show going on right now with an interview with Tim Cook. He addresses that specific thing. It was running this weekend, the first half, and the second one I think starts on Monday on whatever PBS channel, but it's a pretty interesting interview.
One of the things that as a former member of the media, I used to work for the Dayton Daily News, when you first have a report come out from the media, the first 24 to 48 hours or something, they almost always get it wrong. Okay. It's only later on that the details come out, but at that point, you know, it's on like page 26. So there was also a reported breach of Google, 10 million user accounts and passwords. Well, the rest of the story is that these are passwords and accounts that came from a source other than Google, and they're about 5 years old. Okay, so just because they tell you there's been a security breach, it doesn't mean that the sky is falling. However, there have been some retailers since our last meeting that have had security breaches. Home Depot, Lowe's, Target got hit again, but they spotted it within a day, so they've ramped up their act quite a bit. In all of those, you know, if you have an online account, you might want to, at that point, change your password. But just take a deep breath, calm down, you know, and then go out and take care of the situation on a one-to-one basis.
Gmail had supposedly 5 million email passwords.
See, but it was bogus because, no, it was 5 million people from Belarus and Russia, Eastern Europe, who were using their Gmail account name as a username, and they had the same password for the account. You go to set up an Apple ID, and they say, what do you want to use as your username? Okay, well, sometimes people use their names. Sometimes they'll put in, you know, an email address, like Herrick at, you know, yahoo.com. Well, if you use the same password for that account that you're setting up as you do for your email account, okay, you just told them, if they somehow break into that company's stuff, how to get onto your Yahoo email, your Yahoo account, or your Gmail account. So you want to use different passwords for different logins. And we'll talk about that in detail. That might make a good topic to go into just passwords one month. Okay, anybody else for news? Going once, going twice? Okay, Jim, you had something that you wanted to say before.
When back when we were talking about watches,
Yeah.
you forgot part of the cost.
Okay.
You have to buy an iPhone.
That's not clear because when I looked at the some of the comments from folks that were there, members of the media who were they got their hands on it after the presentation. It also works with iPads and other devices. So it's not quite clear exactly what functionality it has on its own and what it doesn't have on its own. The other thing I would remind you is, one, no real human being has bought an Apple Watch yet, so we don't have any real experience with them. Two, they haven't even really gone into production yet. And three, there's a whole lot of companies that want to quash this as fast as they can because they have competing products out there. So just sort of, take everything with a grain of salt that you're going to hear until those devices actually come out. Okay, just, all right. So, next item would be items for sale or wanted. Do we have anybody that brought anything in that they're trying to sell this month? Yes?
Yes, the guy who brings in all this stuff. If anybody has got a Mac Pro and looking to upgrade a graphics card, I've got two here. One's a ATI and the other's an NVIDIA. The ATI is brand new, literally, and originally retailed for $250.
Okay.
So I'll sell both of them for $100.
Okay.
So if anybody's interested, and if you don't have a Mac Pro but would like a Mac Pro, I've also got a 2006 version for sale as well.
And that's Intel.
That's Intel, but it will only run Snow Leopard.
Okay. Do you know what you're asking for? Though?
Make an offer.
Okay. I know of, not me personally, but I know of somebody who's been watching.
Or the other option is I'd also trade for a Mac Mini.
Okay. If you don't sell the Mac Pro or the cards today, send us an email so we can put it out and get more people to. Okay. So that's another club benefit. If you have stuff that you're not using and you either want to donate it to someone or you want to sell it, turn it into cash, bring it to the club meeting. Same thing if you have things that you're looking for something. Somebody gave you, a computer and you need this and that for it. Come to the meetings, let us know. Somebody may have it in the audience. Yes.
I just wanted to let you know the computer cooperative in Cincinnati, we just took a whole load of stuff and they take not only computers, speakers, they also take cell phones. I think there was even maybe VCRs. They took a whole, and it was real easy. They're very limited hours, but they repair these things or use them or use the parts, and they are doing it for, it's volunteer. They're doing it for other places. So I just mentioned that people can.
Send me their contact information, web information, so we can send it out to the members. The other one I'll remind you of is that your local Goodwill in the Miami Valley also recycles and refurbishes computers, and it's not run by arson volunteers with Goodwill, but up on Kurtz Road they have 10 to 15 people that have developmental issues that take these things apart, they vet the parts, they do a better job than I do sometimes with hard drive replacements. It's interesting. Maybe I think too much. But that's another good source to do. The other thing I'll remind you, Larry, did you bring your?
Yeah.
Okay. Club membership benefit. If you have older computer equipment and you don't need it anymore or it doesn't work, but you're leery about taking it to Goodwill because it might have data on the hard drive, bring it to the club meetings. We'll decommission it, and Larry's bringing his in, and I got a Goodwill receipt for you already up here. So, and that's no charge from the club. If you bring it to me personally, I'm going to charge you $30. But if you just bring it to the club meeting, it's free. Well, you paid for it with your dues. Okay. Anything else for sale or wanted? Nope. Okay. Let's move on to.
Just real quick.
Sure.
If anyone needs firewood, I'm going to take down about 31 ash trees. If anyone knows of a good tree cutter company, I'd be interested to see some going around for bids.
I advise you to be very careful about the
They're
ones
way
you
high.
select. They're very good.
Yeah, okay.
Does Brick do your area? Not to?
Yeah. We had a quote from them.
Okay. I'll mention it to my wife because normally we were using Brick, but then the last two times she had a different company come out. Because it just seemed like Brick never seemed to get to us.
Richards out of Springfield.
Yeah, it was like AAA, blah, 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 but okay. Memory's not what it used to be. Better if I talk to your wife and she can tell me exactly. Okay, I'll send you that. Okay, anybody else? Bump, bump, bump. Help desk. Did anybody have any problems this month? Okay. Yes?
This is a potential problem. At the Peace Museum, we're going to be getting some very large TVs, monitors, and the question, again, we talked about this once before, would be better to get a smart TV, it's already got built into it, or get like an Apple TV on one of the other devices, Amazon's got their device now, and to a really good TV without the smartness.
Okay. Can I ask you to go in on this too?
Yeah, because we need some guidance before we buy it.
My opinion is this, okay? And just so you know, the new members, my opinion is not better than his opinion or their opinion, except when I'm right. I don't buy smart TVs because if I want to update it, I can't update the smarts that are in it. Plus, I'm cheap. I don't want to spend extra money for something that I'm not going to use, because I'll put something else on it. So I'm one of the people where I buy the basic large screen with its features. I don't buy one with the smart technology, and then I add on what I want. That could be a Google USB that lets you do smart TV stuff, or it could be a Western Digital device that gets added. They're called what? Desktops? What are they called?
WDTV.
Yeah,
And of course there's
the class of devices. They're when you're adding it to your TV.
It's like a Roku, there's Roku. And
Roku,
Media
Apple
player,
TV, Media Center.
Media
I mean,
player.
there's a whole bunch of different players out there. And the other thing is, I've been burned too many times. I've got a Blu-ray player that's smart, and it's got, this stuff from LG, and it's slow as can be. I press the button for it to open the tray, and 30, maybe, 2 minutes later, the tray comes out. And then I put the disc in, it goes in, and when I'm trying to connect to the internet, it's just slow. Because it's only an $89 unit. All right. Well, what I've learned is it's better to buy a $100 Apple TV or what do they charge for the Google USB stick? 35. Or the Western Digital module, which is $100, or the Roku, which comes in a whole bunch of different models.
Roku's in the lead right now.
And you've got something that's
Apple TV,
inexpensive, but with good capabilities.
The other thing too is, they don't, I've got a 2011 55-inch Samsung, which I've got my Mac Mini hooked up to. But a few months ago, I was having a problem with it rebooting itself periodically, and
The Mac Mini or the Samsung TV?
the Samsung TV, and I finally realized, pulled the Ethernet off of it, thereby disconnecting its smarts, and it stopped. And they're no longer updating the software on that sucker, so something in the smart side of it was crashing the TV. So, a TV is a longer-term investment than the smart features. So I think it does make sense to do that externally. And even if you do have a smart TV, at some point you want the upgrade path.
Yeah, that's what.
Think of your house.
How I
Think
feel
of what's
about
the
it.
oldest television you got in the house.
Right.
How old is that television?
Yeah.
I got stuff from way back when. A lot longer life than a computer might.
Black and white.
Okay. Anybody else for helping us? Yes, Shona.
We're seeing an increase of adware on Macs at the university. And the tool that we're using to remove them is from a website called thesafemac.com.
Okay.
An adware removal tool that seems to work well. But you also need to go in each of your web browsers and remove extensions that get installed from the adware.
Okay.
Signs of adware are pop-ups that you don't expect, and double underlined words in green, so there'll be 2 underlines in green.
Okay. Standard drill, send me that information so I can add it up. The other thing is, think about what you use as your web browser. Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, there's Opera, there's a variety of them out there. I'm particularly enamored with Firefox again because they have a health tool that's built into the latest version. And they have where you can say, hey, look at my extensions and my plugins. Do any of them have a vulnerability, or are any of them known to be bad things that shouldn't be there? Google Chrome, not so much. Safari will prevent you from installing stuff that it thinks is a bad extension. But
Supposedly,
plugins,
but like I said, we're seeing
yeah,
a large number.
yeah.
And mostly students are going either to websites to stream movies that are not technically legitimate sites for streaming, or they're doing RSS feeds from a program called Genio, Genio.
Oh, that's a known, yeah, that one, no.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of coupon things
Yeah.
where it never works, but it installs stuff. So maybe we'll have a thing on that. So, but make sure you send me that one, because I'm always looking for it. If you're running a PC and you have these sorts of issues also, there's a lovely program called Should I Remove It? Okay, that does a wonderful job of vetting all of the startup applications and other things that are on your Windows operating system to tell you whether it's a known problem or not. Okay? Okay. All right, anybody else for help desk?
Just a curiosity, is there anything like that for Mac?
No, because you don't have the number, still, you don't have the number of issues on a Mac. The things that you see on a Mac are like minor annoyances. The stuff you see on a PC, it's like, oh my God, they just got all my data. You know, it's like, oh my God, they're running my machine to do other stuff, and I didn't even know it.
So the spammers have found one of my email accounts, and I'm getting all these attachments. FedEx, your bank transfer failed, open the attachment, take a look. And I've been forwarding them to these attachments to a site called virustotal.com, which basically submits the file to every antivirus on the planet and sends you back a report on what it found on that. And it's interesting to watch. You submit one early on, and maybe a half dozen have it, and then it grows during the day.
Yeah.
But the response is slow, and these are all PC stuff. That's why.
The other thing to remember is that if you're doing your email through a web browser, so you're using Google Chrome to get your email, or you're using Firefox, etc., many of those web browser programs now have the stuff being filtered somehow through them. AOL is an example of where the stuff at the AOL email site, they're filtering out most of the stuff. You never even see it. It doesn't even get to your spam filter. It doesn't even get to your trash. So that, again, that might be something that we talk about in a meeting. Give people more data. Yep.
I'm going to add his suggestion to the list.
Yeah, email us so we got it.
Okay.
Make a note. Memory doesn't work. Okay.
You jogged my mind on something else that I've got. I've got a curious situation with an email account that I have that takes a EKU email.
Okay. And I remember the one from what you emailed to the help desk account at the club. This is something where I got to actually look at your machines and see what version of the operating system you're running, what plugins, extensions, etc. you have. Okay, so what I want you to do, yeah, I'm cutting you off here, but what I want you to do, Dan, is think of a day next week or the week following when you're going to be available, okay, and then call me or email me so I can come, because you're not that far from me. I'll just come over and we'll look at it. Because this one, I want to see whether it's ActiveX technology that's involved with this, or is it Java? You know, what's going on? Okay. So yeah, I do moderate the help desk. Sometimes there's a question that's going to be like, yeah, I know we can't solve it here. It's one I got to see what is going on, and the other people are not going to understand it. Okay. So that's why I cut you off at Denise. Okay, anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right. So then the next thing would be raffle.
Do all members have a raffle ticket?
Gorbachev was meeting with him in Helsinki in September 1990. The Soviet Union had not fallen. The Berlin Wall had not fallen. George Bush was talking about a new world order. Where have we heard that lately? Gasoline had been selling in the high 40-cent, 50-cent range in the Miami Valley, and people were happy. And remember when we had the, well, not me personally, but the ladies had the poofy hairdos. Okay, everybody had a huge mane of hair. But then everybody was sad and angry because oil prices, our gasoline prices, jumped up to, oh my God, almost $1 a gallon. And that was because in August of 1990, a fellow by the name of Saddam Hussein had invaded another oil-producing nation called Kuwait. Okay, so you sort of got, so we're talking 1990. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, a former Apple employee who left when Steve Jobs left was working for CERN, and this is the first sketch that he made of the thing that later became known as the World Wide Web. And 1990, at MIT, some folks at MIT, some graduate students who should have been working on their stuff instead, they're doing other stuff, connected a toaster to the internet, that anyone on the internet could turn the toaster on or off. Now, what they were doing was taking something that had been done at Carnegie Mellon in 1985, where the folks at Carnegie Mellon had connected a vending machine to the internet, where you could look but not touch, but you could see if there was Fanta grape in the machine or not. This is an actual picture of that first machine that was up on the internet, taken a couple of years later. Notice those Macintoshes in the back corner there. Carnegie Mellon was a big Mac place, and still is.
They were running the Coke machine?
Hmm?
The Macs were running the Coke machine?
No. But from the Macs, you could see what was in the machine. So you didn't even have to get up. If you're, you didn't surf the web back then.
You surfed
did
the Coke
a thing
machine?
called Gopher.
Yeah.
Gopher. All right. Meanwhile, at Apple, Steve Jobs was out. And the guy that was running the show was John Scully. And they were still selling the Apple II GS. That was still the major source of their revenue coming in. Okay. Now, former teachers. Is that how you dressed in your classroom? You know, the nice white shirt and the scarf and the... No. Okay. My sister's a teacher. She used to teach home ec, and she would never go to class looking like that. Okay. Meanwhile, on the Macintosh side of Apple, the 2FX had just come out, which was a wicked fast machine. But they had an entire family of Macintosh computers. So we had the Mac Classic, the Mac SE30, the Macintosh Portable, 22 pounds. The Mac LC, the Mac 2SI, the Mac 2CI, and the Mac 2FX, which was wicked fast. My main machine at that point was a Mac SE30, and on that I ran a bulletin board system that was connected to FidoNet. So even though in 1990 I wasn't connected to the internet, I was enabling people to send messages worldwide. Text. My Macintosh SE bulletin board machine was running Mac OS, not Mac OS X, Mac OS 608. So this is before we had Mac OS 7, before we had Mac OS 8, before we had any of the Unix stuff. On my other machine, which was a Windows DOS machine, I bought a copy of Windows 3 from Microsoft. And I went, no. And I went back to using DOS. The killer app of 1990 was PageMaker. It spawned an entire industry called desktop publishing. And that eventually had serious consequences for people who actually worked in publishing. Meanwhile, there was a new program that had been released in 1990 called Photoshop. And people were thinking, hey, this may be the next killer app. It was for manipulating pictures. It released first on the Mac, by the way. And another program that was released, KidPix. KidPix. Which the folks at Apple were so thrilled with that they actually started, they bought a bazillion copies of it and they made it part of the standard install if you bought a Mac, that you got a copy of KidPix. And in 1990, a program that had been called Preview was released. They changed the name because somebody already had rights to the word preview. And that program was PowerPoint. PowerPoint. Now notice this is from forethought. PowerPoint was not invented by Microsoft, it was bought by Microsoft. So that was sort of a glimpse into the past. Okay, welcome to the future. Okay, now, I was using a series of still photographs. I was looking at them in the program that comes with your Mac called Preview, and I had it running it as a slideshow. So that's one of the 7 different ways you can run slideshows under this. Okay, now, back to PowerPoint. Hello, here we go. Okay. So, our presentation today is a program called GraphicConverter. It's version 9 of it, actually 9.3. GraphicConverter, the application, its name is one word. There's no space in there. So if you want to Google it, you're looking for it on the internet, it's one word.
Are you still in the past?
Say again?
Are you still in the past with this slide?
Hold on a second here. Okay, let me go forward a little bit. And for those of you who don't know me, I am William Herrick. I'm the co-founder of TMG. I'm the current president of TMG. If you have a question, email me at that address, president@tmgdayton.org. Okay, that's for the new folks. Okay. Communication. We all know how essential it is. In other words, you're not alone. Okay? And then just an announcement that Mac Depot has closed now. Sorry, Mac Depot is closed.
It's interesting their phone number is still on the website. It's interesting their phone number is still on the website.
Yeah, and they've maintained it. Over at MacTown, they have pulled the website from the internet, but they're maintaining that name because the original website URL for Uniform Resource Locator, there's all these 3-letter acronyms for computer stuff, is www.applesales.com, which Joe Weingarten got that domain back in, I want to say it was maybe 1985, 86, somewhere around in there. Okay, so Mr. Wharton had asked if this was a blast from the past. I did a demo of GraphicConverter version 1. Actually, it was the pre-release because it didn't go on sale in the U.S. until January of 1992 for the Mac group at their very first meeting on September 8, 1990. So this year, because we're doing our 25th year of operation, I'm going to be throwing out these little blasts from the past, as I call them. Okay, GraphicConverter is a current program. Works under Mac OS 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, and I've tried it under Yosemite, and it works okay under 10.10. Let me just give you a couple of details. The person who's responsible for it is Thorsten Lemke, and he's German, He's been doing this since 1990. The full version costs $39.95. If you're buying it on his website, you get to choose whether you're doing dollars or you're doing euros. And the family license is $60. You can put it on 5 machines if you've got the family license. That's his website. You can buy it directly from there. He'll sell it to you either as a download or he'll mail a CD, DVD to you. Okay? And it's what's called shareware. In other words, you can download a copy of it and try it without having to pay anything. Okay? I've taken the licensed version of GraphicConverter that I had on my computer off, and I'm running the demo version. But it's full featured, just so you see what it's like if you're running it in demo. And again, GraphicConverter is shareware. That means you can try their product without obligation and free of charge before purchasing, and they don't have any annoying advertisements coming up in their product. One of the other things that I noticed when I was on his website, many computer companies, software companies, they only want to support the current version. They only want you to buy the current version. You can download from his website GraphicConverter 6, which runs on Tiger, on PowerPC machines, 7, which runs on Leopard or Snow Leopard, 8, which runs on Lion and Mountain Lion, or 9, which runs on Mountain Lion, Mavericks, and it works on Yosemite. So he's someone who doesn't throw away the old versions, still supports them. In other words, he's doing it right. Okay, any questions at this point? Okay, so you should know who makes it, how to get to it, what the price of it is, all that good stuff. Okay, so the name of the program is GraphicConverter, and originally that was its main purpose, to be able to convert from one graphic format to another. Back in 1990, we had Genie and AOL, and I need help here because I don't remember all of my online services that were out there. That we were CompuServe, thank you. There were some others that were out
Prodigy.
there.
Prodigy.
Prodigy, and people with different computers were using those online services. So you had Amiga, and you had Atari, and you had Commodore, and you had Apple, and you had Microsoft out there, okay, PCs. And all of those computers had their own graphic formats. So you would have all these pictures that were uploaded by the Atari people that was in the Atari format, and all the stuff that was uploaded on CompuServe that was in the Amiga format, or the Apple II format, or the Mac format, or get the idea? But it might be the same picture in 20 different formats. Or it might be the picture only appeared in one format, but it wasn't the one your computer used. So one of the major features of GraphicConverter was to bring some order to this madness, where you could import a picture that's in one format and then output it in the format you wanted to use. So GraphicConverter today imports from more than 200 formats. Okay. I thought I was, a software professional, and I knew all of the graphic formats that were out there from the 15 years I worked at the Dayton Daily News. There's graphic formats I've never heard of that GraphicConverter will open. And you can export into more than 80 formats. So basically, if you've got a picture and it's not in a format that's usable to you, GraphicConverter can convert it to a format that you can use. You can also use it for catalog generation. In other words, you got a whole bunch of pictures and you want to catalog them. GraphicConverter will do that. And it'll do it and output in either a web format, a print format, or a picture format. In other words, you can output that catalog onto a website, or you can print that catalog. Think gallery contact sheets. If you're a photographer, you got contact sheets. Think contact sheets. Or you can just keep it as a picture database where it'll let you work with it. Direct camera picture import. You also import RAW. So if you've got cameras that are not recognizable on a Mac for some reason, sometimes this does a pretty good job of being able to talk to it and bring it in. So for example, if you had a quick take camera with a SCSI interface on it from 1993, that's not going to work on a modern day Mac. But if you've got a SCSI USB interface and you connect it to it, GraphicConverter can bring in pictures from that floppy disk that's inside your quick take camera. Twain interface for scanners. So this thing can talk directly to a scanner and allow you to bring pictures in from scanners where your drivers don't work anymore under modern day operating systems. And direct photo services support for Flickr, Google, Locker, and I think they also are working on having Pinterest and the other social media stuff where people are doing pictures. They're working on getting that also supported. Next function for GraphicConverter, picture organization and workflow management. Graphical file and picture browser. All right, I can launch GraphicConverter and tell it, hey, go show me the pictures that are in my iPhoto library. And it doesn't have to launch iPhoto to do it.
Oh.
Or, hey, go look at that CD that's filled with pictures and show me what's there in a browser type format. That's really convenient. Because no matter what you throw at it, if you learn how the GraphicConverter browser works, hey, you know, whether you're throwing a flash drive at it or a CD or a DVD or an iPhoto library, it's going to be able to show it to you in an interface that you understand. You also can do slideshows in it. Batch conversion. Now, this one doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really is. You can tell GraphicConverter, take the pictures that are in this folder and create a new folder over here, convert them from whatever format they're in, and output them in the new format and put them in that folder. And I'll go have lunch with friends and I'll come back when you finish doing those 10,000 photos. Okay, batch conversion. So if you were in a publishing enterprise, you know, newspaper, magazine, whatever, you have literally thousands of photos coming in a day, and they all have to be on a particular gradient. Most operations would be using Photoshop to do that, and automator functions to do that. You can do it directly in GraphicConverter without those other things. And full support for AppleScript. So if you want to automate things, this is the program that's got a very, very rich AutoScript dictionary. Next. Okay, so we've talked about how it can be used to convert pictures from one format to another. We've talked about how you can use it as an organizing tool. You can also use it to edit pictures. So you've got Express Picture Enhancement function. That's sort of like similar to what it is in iPhoto, where you can say, hey, you know, work magic on this picture, make it look good. You know, real quick tools, the red eye tools, that kind of stuff. Enhance and create pictures for web use. So there's a very strong web package component to it, where you can say, hey, these are all these photos out here. I'm going to be using them on a website. They don't have to be at, you know, tremendous resolution. Take them down, do your magic, output them so they're more suitable for use on the web. Or you want to have maybe 72 DPI as opposed to 1400 DPI resolution. Okay. Advanced functions, effects, filters for picture manipulation. So the same sort of stuff that you see available, plugins and such that you see available for Photoshop, you know, that you add by and add on. They've got a fairly rich set of plugins, and there are developers making plugins for GraphicConverter still. Plugin architecture, color sync and ICC profiles management. Again, if you've ever worked in publishing, you know, print, magazine, newspaper, that's really, really important. You've got different devices taking pictures, you've got different scanners involved. When you're outputting to a press, or you're outputting to a website, you want those pictures to have a consistent look. So let's say you're at a Reds game. You want that Cincinnati Reds red to be consistent in all the pictures. GraphicConverter will allow you to use color sync to even all those out. Look, it'll actually see what the device was that took it, apply the appropriate ICC profile, so you're getting a consistent output from this. And then last but not least, 3D image support. So they're starting to get into where you can, it has to do with holograms and you know, the stuff you do in Maya where you're creating 3D images. It's really two-dimensional, but it looks like it's 3D. They're working on having it be able to do that. So they're looking forward to the future. I don't do a whole lot of 3D stuff, you know. I'm not a graphic designer, so Jeff gets to laugh at me when I fire up GraphicConverter and stuff. Okay, last but not least, compatibility. Supports the latest technologies of different Mac OS versions. Again, they have up there where you can download supported versions for Tiger, Leopard, Snow Leopard, Lion, Mountain Lion, Mavericks, and as I said, 9.3 works with Yosemite. I have a beta version of Yosemite that I'm using. Wow. I can't think of any other company that's supporting stuff that far back. Can you think of anybody that does that, Rich?
No.
I mean, the browsers, they're, you know, Firefox, they say, hey, you know, anything older than Snow Leopard, Firefox isn't going to support it. They have full support for the JPEG 2000 format. So you have these standard organizations that are out there, you know, International Standards Organization. JPEG 2000 is a standard for digital photographs, and this fully complies with it. Again, he's in Germany, they're part of the European Union, so you know, all that stuff that comes out of Brussels with the ISO organizations. He's staying up to date with it. And last but not least, multilingual. It's available in English, German, French, Danish, Swedish, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, simplified and traditional, Czech, Dutch, Catalan, and Russian. Yeah, I know, you're going to tell me, wait a minute, Catalonia, that's part of Spain, they should be speaking Spanish. Don't do that in Barcelona, you'll get in trouble real quick. The Catalonians just had a, okay, let me stop for a second. You know, Scotland is having this vote whether they're going to split from the United Kingdom. The Catalonians are rummaging around the same thing. They had a small demonstration in Barcelona Thursday. They had 1.5 million people show up in favor of independence of Catalonia to Spain. That's a lot of strange stuff going on in the world. Okay.
Do the Catalonians still want to be part of the EU?
Yeah, they want to be part of the EU. They just don't want to be part of Spain. Okay. They want to basically have the same sort of thing that like Portugal has with Spain. It's a separate nation, but they trade and they do stuff. Catalonia is where the money is right now in Spain. You're not going to find the money in Catalonia. That's where the money is. Okay, any questions at this point?
I just noticed that things like Finnish and Norwegian and Polish, which are also part of the EU, were not on there. I just find that interesting.
Yeah, and I could email Lemke and find out why he doesn't do those. I think it's probably because he doesn't have any neighbors that speak those languages.
Could be. Now, I was just curious when I was looking at the list.
Go back to this for a second. Yeah, okay. Dun, 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 dun.
He's got Czech.
Yeah. Well, if you do Danish, you're sort of doing Swedish. Well, they got Swedish. If you're doing Swedish, you're sort of doing Norwegian. Though the Norwegians wouldn't say that.
I'm not sure.
And they got French, you know. They got English. I mean, they got it pretty much covered.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a three-person shop.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's amazing.
Okay, you got Thornton that does the programming. You got his wife that handles the orders and that, and then you've got one employee that does some other stuff. And then he's got some friend who used to be a customer who writes the manual up. Oh, let me just tell you this too. if you're interested in GraphicConverter, when you go out to their website, they have a place where you can download a full manual for the different versions, and they have a workshop PDF and pictures to use with the workshop. It's for GraphicConverter 7, but the interface, the main features are pretty much the same as you go from 7 to 8 to 9. So you've got the tutorials and all the other stuff, so you can really, truly evaluate it, and it's all free for download.
I'll provide them that URL in the package.
Okay. And if you just want to put in your notes, it's www.lemkesoft.de. Okay, so it's not anything else, DE. That'll take you to Deutschland. Okay? So, should I do a demonstration at this point? You're interested? Okay.
But when you're paying, I assume they just take care of taking it in dollars and you can use your credit card online?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I don't buy things across borders for outlets. I wasn't sure how it worked.
Yeah. If you want, I can bring up their website.
Oh, no,
You
no,
can
I
click
just
on
wanted to
this
ask,
link
is
and
there
then-
any trick to paying for it with a
Yeah.
credit card?
Yeah.
Other than having money?
Yeah. Or you can call them up and do it over the phone, too. All right, so let me do an escape here. Escape. Let me just clean up some of these
So
windows.
Lemke's wife speaks English?
I don't know if she speaks English. I know she's the one who actually runs the business. She'll quit on that one. Okay, so this is a MacBook Pro with 16 gig RAM, which is way more than GraphicConverter means. GraphicConverter runs just fine if you've got a 2 gig RAM machine or 4 gig RAM machine. Let me get to applications here. Okay, let me tell it to sort it up.
What are you looking
Fourth
for?
row down.
Fourth row down.
Just tell it to arrange it by name. Keep it arranged. There we go. Okay, now I see it. All right. Okay, so I'm in Finder and I'm in an icon view, and I've got a small slider in this lower right-hand corner of the screen. If I drag that, the icons become bigger. So that's GraphicConverter. Do you notice they have sort of a Swiss Army knife on it? That's because they used to use as their marketing that they were the Swiss Army knife of photo applications until the Swiss got on their case. Yeah. You know, you think a Philadelphia lawyer is bad to have on your case? A Swiss lawyer is much worse. Much worse. Okay. As I said, this is an unserialized shareware version of GraphicConverter. So the first thing it's going to do, freshly installed, is it's going to say, do you want me to check for updates automatically? And I'm going to say, yeah, that's a good thing. Then it's going to come up with its little screen here, and it says, hey, you know, you're using this as shareware. You haven't paid for it. You've been using it for 1 day. And then they very politely say, would you consider purchasing? And I can either say quit, or I can put in a license, or I can click the button that's already selected that says try it. Now, remember, when you're in Mac OS X, if you've got a button that's in blue like that, you can either click on it, or you can just hit your return key, and it'll select it. Okay, did you catch that little one? Yeah, that's nice. Sometimes we get tired of clicking, we just hit the keyboard. All right, so then it's going to come up with sort of what I call like a foyer, an entryway. And it says, hey, hi, what do you want to do? Do you want to create a new image? Do you want to create a new image from the clipboard? In other words, you have something that you've copied that's in your clipboard. It'll open that and let you work with it. Do you want to open some image that's already on your computer? Or do you want to show a browser? Do you want to start a slideshow? Do you want to do a batch conversion? So you can pick what your function is right away. And I'm going to start out with, let's do start a slideshow. Okay, so what it's saying is, where is the thing that you want to do the slideshow from? So now I'm going to sit and point it to my desktop. And I've got this folder called Welcome 1990. I'm going to say, hey, open those up. And I'm going to say, okay, name a special technology that'll enhance an image displayed with GraphicConverter. Please check the box if I want to use it. I'm going to say, yeah. I'm going to say, continue. Okay, so here we go. We've got our little image there. So it's thinking, and as I hit my keys, my arrow keys, it brings them in. It's doing its own little version of it. Now, do you notice that these pictures some are small and some are big? When I was doing a slideshow in preview, the program, it would automatically make things fill the screen. GraphicConverter is meant for graphic artists where they really want to know what's the resolution of that picture, what's the natural size of that picture. So in a slideshow, it's going to be showing it in its natural resolution. A graphic artist will run a slideshow not to enjoy the pictures, but because they've got this tremendous number of images that they got to go through. And they're probably filtering out the ones that are too low of a resolution to use or too large of a resolution to use. So you can tell some of these images are really big.
So is this function making a slideshow or just allowing a slideshow to use other things?
It's allowing a slideshow view of it. It's not saving it as a standalone slideshow. So think of it more as another way to browse through a particular group of pictures. So let me go back here and let's do some of the other guys here. So let's see. It's been a while since I've used it this way. Let's go look at browse. So, let's see. Let's go into pictures. And oh, I see a Photoshop library. I don't know if there's anything in that, but I'll try it here. Yeah, that iPhoto library that I've got doesn't have any pictures in it. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that if I was on my regular machine at home where I've got 15,000 photos in the iPhoto library, this would let me look not just at the individual photos, but the special albums that it had created or the events that were in iPhoto. So you know,
it's iPhoto aware.
Yeah.
Could you take something, say, take your iPhoto library through this and set up a separate slideshow or a group of pictures, and then what kind of format is that in? Or you have a choice of how you...
Okay. If you're going to do a catalog of it, it's going to use its own format for the catalog. One of the things that GraphicConverter is very careful about is not screwing with your pictures. Okay? So it's going to leave them in that original format unless you tell it to change it. Okay? The other thing to keep in mind is that, let me just go in here just real quick. Go there. Desktop. I just want to bring up something here. There we go. So we'll say the open slides. So I'm using it to browse some photos now. Okay. So if I've got this selected and I tell it to go and we want to do a slideshow with it, we've already done that. Let's do a catalog of it. Let's say, give me a picture catalog. I'm gonna say print catalog.
Is that like where you have a big print of all the little
Yeah,
pictures?
basically it's a gallery sheet. And what I'm gonna do right now is just open up some stuff. Let me find something that's a little bit bigger. Here we go. Let me drag some of these things around. Just tell that. Yeah, so here we're in an edit mode in GraphicConverter. You'll notice that I'm having a little bit of trouble navigating all the features. That's because typically I use GraphicConverter to do two things. Convert from one format to another, or to put text on a picture. Basically, I'm not a graphic artist. I'm not doing multi-layer stuff and bringing all, even though those features are in GraphicConverter. So it's not a lack of the program. It's rather the person who's driving the car only knows how to go to Cleveland, say. All right, so here's a picture, and let's say we want to edit that. Okay, well, over here we have all of these wonderful tools. And I'm going to just zoom in here a little bit, just so you can see it. Now, do I know how to use most of these tools? No. But some of them I do know how to use. So you've got the standard tool sets that we're used to seeing in photo editors from the past to the present. We've got our eraser, and we've got our paint bucket, we have our eyedropper, and we've got our brush, and we've got our stamps. There's a couple different erasures. We got things for drawing lines. We got things for putting text on stuff. We've got things for doing shapes. All those sorts of wonderful things. Let me see if I've got another picture I can bring up here. Zoom out a little bit. File, open. Desktop. Let's put something on it. Okay. And let's do something like put some text on here. So we'll click on our text tool. Go over there. I'll click there, and I'll say, I knew I should have turned that off.
Hey, did you know that
Okay, so what I'm doing there is I'm using its zoom function to zoom in or zoom out of this particular picture. Meanwhile, my phone is vibrating on my hip. So you can see that when I was using that text tool, oh, I was putting words on it. This is a computer. You have control over what the background color of that text block would be and what color the text would be in. So let's go over here.
How do you determine where to put the text?
I took my pointer and I clicked on a
Oh,
particular
okay.
spot on the screen. So if I click on text and I bring my pointer in,
Gotcha.
again, let me,
Okay. I just missed that.
so if I click there and I start to type, you know, I can put it wherever I want. It's doing layer technology. So have you ever seen how Walt Disney, how they used to do the stuff with what were called cells? So, you know, somebody paints Thumper, somebody paints Bambi. They're doing it on clear plastic sheets. Then they lay them over each other. And then somebody paints the tree and somebody does this and they put it all together and then they take a picture of it. Each one of those cells is a different layer. GraphicConverter works with layers, similar to how Photoshop works with layers.
Is it easy to see the layers like you can with elements and that?
Not as easy. Not as easy. Yes?
If you wanted to change what the original that you just put in there to a larger font, can you do that?
Yeah, you have that ability. Okay, and I don't remember. At home, I've got a tool that I use, where I just hit it. It's an Apple script. And basically, I hit that Apple script, and it says the text tool to have the backdrop be the same as the color that I'm putting the text on. And it'll change my text automatically to a color which will heighten its visibility against that backdrop. So I don't have to choose things like colors.
So if you put text on the dark portion there, it would be white?
Let me change my backdrops here. So, okay. This will tell you what sort of graphic artist I am. When I go to a color picker, I choose the crayons. So, over here, on this part of the control panel, their tool palette, I've selected what my foreground color is and what the background color is going to be. Right, I'm going to change one of those here. I got the background color to be white. I want to change my foreground color to be something like, we'll do like a really bright green. Okay, now if I come in here with my text tool, so I have to go to my tool palette, click on text tool. Let's see, let's put it right there. And over here, now this is one of the things that people criticize GraphicConverter for. You've got all of these separate tool palettes that are floating around. So I've got my major tools, and this is my text tool. This is where I select what font it's going to use and what size that font's going to be. And I'm going to take it up to, we'll do 72 point. And we'll do, hello, come on. Just got to think for a second. There we go. And we'll pick Tray Bucket. There we go, Tray Boucher. All right, so now I'm going to click there. Change that again. Let's change it to yellow. So you have control over what color the text is going to be, what the backdrop's going to be, whether it aliases it or anti-aliases, all this stuff that I don't really understand. But graphic artists that work with this stuff all the time do every day. They do it without it. You also have tools for doing things like picking up colors. So I've got an eyedropper tool. If I bring it in and I click on a part of the picture, I've now transferred that color to my tool palette. So now I can do things like go into my eraser. Here's eraser. Let me make it real big. You double click these things to make your tools bigger. I'm going to make it an oval. I'm going to drag it up. There we go.
So if you wanted to erase the apple one.
All right, so here I'm going to take out this backdrop. My text is still there because it's on a different layer. And I just took all that stuff, erased all that stuff out. And then I'll come over here and I'll say, hey, you know, I want to use the same color that the screen has. And then finally I'll come in, where's my little tool? And then I'll fill that color in. So it's got all the standard tools that I don't know how to use, but it's there. So if you're a graphic artist or you're someone that just wants to noodle around with it a little bit, it's a fun program to use. Very powerful, and yet if you pay attention to what tool palettes have come up, it's easy to use. The thing you shouldn't expect is the standardized menus that you're going to see in something like Photoshop Elements or in Photoshop. But again, those standardized menus and Photoshop elements in Photoshop, you go in, you go in, you go in, you go in. Yes, they've organized them, but if you don't know where you're going to, you're not going to find that tool that you want. In GraphicConverter, for me, it's easier. I go, oh, text box. There's where all the text settings are. Oh, shape box. That's where all the shape settings are. For me, it's multiple palettes work better with my goals. Yeah.
Well, this also do just blank screen, draw a group of shapes of something?
Sure. Yeah. And you can have them either be filled or not filled. And you can put the color you want in or have them be a gradient.
Then copy them and move them around and
So
select them.
one of the other things, there is a third thing I use GraphicConverter for, and that's doing flowcharts, decision point, diamond. Excuse me. Ever since I've come back to the Miami Valley, having hay fever issues, didn't have this problem out in Iowa. All right, so bottom line, GraphicConverter, does it have all the features and such that you would find in Photoshop, Creative, Suite? No. Do normal people use all the features in Photoshop? No. That's why we have Photoshop Elements. Okay. GraphicConverter, tons of features. This is the thing I would use if I was converting from one format of a file to another. And for editing, it's got all the tools that I know how to use, and it does it very well. And last but not least, there are versions that work on older machines and the current machines. So basically, I give them an A+, and they get an A+ with 2 gold stars for longevity. But they're still cranking, still a viable product after 23 years. Yes, Rich?
And once you buy it, continuous updates forever?
Just about, yeah. I have a GraphicConverter that was, at one point, GraphicConverter was looked on so highly by Apple that they made it part of the basic install. So you installed your machine, boom, you had GraphicConverter. And those still work, and they're still available to update. So that's the stuff from Mac OS. So with that said, let me zoom out here. I'm seeing it's 11:53. I'm going to stop talking and just, any other questions? Yes, George?
Here's an awful wall one for you.
Okay.
In the technical community, there are a variety of image formats. They might not even be images that you and I think of as images. Does GraphicConverter give you any possibilities of bringing those into the
some of the early CAD formats from the late 1990s, early 2000s were considered to be graphic formats, and GraphicConverter will open them and allow you to output them as something else. So, example. Anybody remember Harvard Graphics?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, Harvard Graphics had a very, very simple CAD-CAM ability to it. Okay, not what we would call CAD-CAM today, but back then. GraphicConverter will let you open a Harvard Graphics file and then output it to something that a modern Photoshop can work with, or GraphicConverter can work with, or if you put it into a JPEG that you could edit in iPhoto or Photoshop Elements, or one of the other ones that are out there. Yes?
Okay, so I've got a folder with some pictures in an iPhoto. I want to save one of the folders with the original format, but I want to change it. So what I do is go in, I select all, then duplicates, then take those duplicates to another file.
What you would do is you would launch GraphicConverter, go to its browser, have it look at your iPhoto library. You would select the album or the event or the photos you want. You would tell it that you want to export them. You would tell it what format you want them exported to, and you would tell it where to put them in a folder.
Okay. Rather than going to the extra work.
Yeah. And for me, as much as iPhoto is a very powerful program from Apple, their interface confuses me. And I have trouble sometimes figuring out where a particular photo is. So I use GraphicConverter to look at my iPhotos pictures, so I can find the picture that my wife took in Sarasota, or the picture she took out in North Carolina, or the group of pictures, and then I can say, hey, export them, put them on this flash drive, hand the flash drive to the person, there you go. I'm done. So, I don't see anybody else with a question. Okay, one more.
Does this have real save and save as opposed to?
You've got two different ways of doing things. Okay. Similar to iPhoto, where iPhoto keeps the original, GraphicConverter, if you're using its composing function, keeps the original and all changes that you've made to it. So you can open a picture that you've edited in GraphicConverter. It will allow you to undo stuff you did from a year ago. Okay, again, it's looking for people where they're using stock photos and they put this text on it this month. They're doing a new magazine ad. So same stock photo, but you're going to put different text.
So it keeps it undo in the file.
Yeah, in the file. Yeah, which is impressive, I guess.
Yeah, you can strip that.
This was one of those technologies that Apple saw and they started to put into their things like text edit, where you've got the versions of files.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm not a big favor of, but you know.
No, that's why I'm still running Snow Leopard.
Right. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to do a quick here. It's a really nice program. It's one of my dear software friends from the past who stayed up to date. I would recommend that you at least look at it. It might be the tool that you've been looking to add to your software tool. Okay. The price is reasonable. It's half the price of Photoshop Elements. It's got many of the features that Photoshop Elements has in terms of editing, but it can convert files that Photoshop Elements doesn't want to touch, or Photoshop would touch. Okay.
This is mostly under news, actually, but I read that iPhoto's going away, and one of their other more professional photo programs, I forgot the name of it.
Aperture.
And it's going to be replaced with a new program called Photos.
Okay. Here's the bigger picture, okay? They're taking the operating system on the Mac and they're making it so it works better with the operating system on the mobile devices, okay? You know how they took iCal on the Mac and they renamed it Calendar because that's what it's called on the mobile devices? iPhoto will become Photos, just like it is over here, and they're going to talk to each other more and have more of the same capabilities. The program that is now dead, not going to get any more updates, is called Aperture. And there's a lot of folks that use Aperture that are not pleased about that because, well, for example, I have a friend on the West Coast. He insists he's not a professional photographer, but his Aperture has got over 200,000 images in it. I mean, he's got 100,000 images of the Golden Gate Bridge. If you've got a calendar with a Golden Gate Bridge picture on it, it's probably his. I mean, he's been taking pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge for 30-something years. And he insists he's not a photographer. He's not happy because he spent literally, probably $200, $300 for various plugins and other things that work with Aperture. Well, that's all they work with. They don't work with any of the other competing products like Lightroom from Adobe. So, if you were thinking about buying the Aperture, don't. And we'll see what they end up doing with iPhoto.
How far off are those kind of?
They're doing this stuff now. They sort of had their hands full with getting iOS 8 out the door and Yosemite and the Apple Watch thing and the other two wearable devices they're working on that they haven't told anybody about. I think it's going to be a necklace or something. A brooch or a necklace they're going to come out with. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, eye choker.
Okay, I think I'm talked out. I think your brains are full. I'm going to say thank you for coming, and I'll see you next month.